Welcome to the Explainer. I want you to picture something for a second. Imagine a lonely rock sitting smack in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean. No fresh water, no rivers, zero natural resources. I mean, by all conventional logic, this place should just be an uninhabitable, barren strip of rock. And yet, the reality is entirely different.
60,000. Yeah, that is the staggering number of people who actually call this isolated rock home. And they aren't just scraping by either. They enjoyed one of the highest standards of living on the entire planet. We're talking immense wealth, all while regularly facing down massive Atlantic hurricanes and having absolutely zero mineral wealth. No oil, no gold, nothing. So how in the world did a community pull something like that off?
Well, it's a massive paradox, right? Because geographically speaking, Bermuda is kind of cursed. It's this tiny 50 square kilometer archipelago made of highly porous limestone, and it is completely isolated. The nearest mainland is over 1,000 kilometers away to the west. Head east, and you're crossing more than 4,800 kilometers of open ocean before you finally hit Marapo. Every single shipment, every connection to the outside world has to cross this immense stretch of water. Yet, despite being so cut off, its people enjoy incredible prosperity. To understand how they do it, we actually have to go way, way back. 35 million years ago, a massive underwater volcano formed deep beneath the Atlantic floor. Over millions of years, coral reefs and marine sediments piled onto that volcanic summit, eventually creating a limestone cap nearly 60 meters thick. Fast forward to 1609. A violent storm drives an English ship, the Sea Venture, right onto the reefs. The survivors dragged themselves ashore, probably thrilled to be alive, only to be completely astonished to find a beautiful island with absolutely no rivers, no lakes, and zero natural sources of fresh water. Which brings us to the ultimate do-or-die survival question. How do you drink when every single drop of groundwater is salty? You might be thinking, well, just dig a well. But remember that 60-meter limestone cap we just talked about? It is incredibly porous. Digging deep underground only gives you brackish water, basically fresh water that's been hopelessly contaminated by seawater seeping right through the rock. Not a single drop is safe to drink. So, out in the middle of this vast ocean, their most precious resource isn't found in the ground at all. It falls from the sky. Bermudians solved this huge problem by literally transforming their homes into giant water catchers. When rain hits their iconic stepped white limestone roofs, the water is forced down these really meticulously carved small channels. It then passes through narrow filtering gaps and flows straight into massive storage tanks hidden right beneath their houses. Every rainfall is a vital event. They essentially figured out how to capture life straight from the sky. It's a brilliant piece of microarchitecture. And this ingenious design isn't just a quirky local trend, it's a matter of absolute survival. In fact, it is literally written into the law. Every single new home must have a water tank large enough for each square meter of roof space. The roof is the true foundation of their life. Plus, that stark white color reflects the intense tropical sunlight to keep the houses cool, while the sheer weight of the solid stone helps them withstand the violent Atlantic hurricane seasons. It is just an absolute masterclass in human adaptation. But you know, the constraints of living on a 50 square kilometer rock definitely don't end with water. Space is incredibly tight. Back in 1951, way before the rest of the world was worrying about traffic congestion, Bermuda passed a law allowing only one car per household. And visitors, they cannot rent private cars in any form, period. Because of this, the morning commute isn't filled with blaring car horns. Instead, it's the soft hum of scooters weaving through the trees and the horn of a ferry carrying passengers across the crystal clear water. It breeds this deeply connected, close-knit community where a short ride means waving to people you've literally known since childhood. Now, if you know anything about Bermuda, you've probably heard of its famous pink beaches, like Horseshoe Bay. But here's a wild fact. It's not red coral making that sand pink. It is actually Homotrema rubrum, these tiny red-shelled marine organisms. When parrotfish eat them along with the coral, they crush up those hard shells in their digestive tracts, creating tiny red fragments that mix with the white sand. And boom, naturally pink beaches. This all happens right in the warm, clear waters of the Sargasso Sea, a vibrant ecosystem that also happens to hide over 300 shipwrecks just offshore. It's a gorgeous ecosystem, but also a graveyard for past ships. Okay, so how did this isolated community get so incredibly wealthy? Well, they leveraged their only real advantages: location and ingenuity.
Back in the 18th century, Bermudians took native cedar wood and built the Bermuda sloop, a super lightweight, rot-resistant ship. They built nearly 1,000 of these highly maneuverable vessels to completely dominate the North American salt trade, basically turning the ocean from a barrier into a highway. But as the world modernized, wooden ships became obsolete. So what did they do? They pivoted. They shifted to an invisible industry, reinsurance. They figured out a way to turn global disasters into a massive financial engine.
And let me tell you, they are incredibly dominant at it. This tiny island of just 60,000 people manages over 1/3 of the entire global catastrophe reinsurance market. Now, if you're wondering what reinsurance is, it's basically insurance for insurance companies. When massive hurricanes, earthquakes, or global crises hit, Bermuda is the financial backstop that helps the world's insurers absorb those massive hits. They took their maritime history and their strategic location between North America and Europe and turned it into unparalleled financial credibility. Which leads us to the staggering number right here, $1.5 trillion. In the capital city of Hamilton, there's a really strict rule that no building can rise higher than the city's cathedral. So the result is this picturesque, low-rise, pastel-colored skyline. It looks super quaint, but inside those modest buildings, financial experts are managing $1.5 trillion in assets. They're signing billion-dollar contracts every single day to protect the world against disasters they may never even see. It is wealth extracted not from the ground, but from brilliant risk management. And, as you'd probably expect from a place this unique, their corporate culture is deeply distinctive. If you walk into a billion-dollar boardroom in Hamilton, you aren't just going to see standard, boring suits. You'll see executives and politicians wearing a dress shirt, a tie, a formal blazer, high socks, and crucially, knee-length Bermuda shorts. This style actually started in the late 19th century when overheating British military officers asked to have their trousers shortened. What began totally out of necessity is now a fiercely proud symbol of local elegance and identity. That fierce preservation of identity extends way beyond the boardroom, too. It really comes alive in the Gombe dance. When festival days arrive, the streets just echo with drums and dancers appear in these towering peacock feather headdresses and painted masks. The history here is incredibly profound. Gombe was created by enslaved Africans brought to Bermuda. The masks weren't just decorative. They were specifically designed to conceal the dancers' identities from slave owners who viewed this cultural expression as a threat to the social order. Today, those masks are proudly worn as a vibrant, highly public celebration of community resilience and heritage. Now, I should point out that living on this rock isn't a complete fairy tale. Paradise definitely has a steep price. The cost of living is notoriously astronomical because every single essential product, from your groceries to daily necessities, has to be shipped across the ocean. Expansion is virtually impossible due to that strict 50-square-kilometer limit, making housing and infrastructure a constant, brutal challenge. Plus, every single hurricane season is a tense reminder that their lives are tied to a volatile ocean, not to mention the looming existential threat of rising sea levels. So you might be wondering, why stay? Why endure the sky-high costs, the cramped space, and the terrifying storms? Well, because the true value of a place isn't measured by its physical resources. It's measured by human ingenuity and by how people love it, protect it, and call it home. Bermudians took a porous, waterless limestone rock and, through sheer adaptability, from inventing step roofs to catch the rain to building a trillion-dollar reinsurance industry, they forged a completely prosperous civilization entirely on their own terms. Which leaves us with a pretty interesting question to chew on. If an isolated, barren rock with absolutely zero natural resources can transform into a prosperous, vibrant, multi-billion-dollar home, what is your community's untapped resource? What limitations could actually turn out to be your greatest strengths? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope you found this as fascinating as I did, and I'll catch you on the next one.